Pollution and Runoff by Jamauri. What's the issue? Has it ever occurred to you that your efforts alone can make a tremendous difference in the world? Have you ever pondered the idea that your actions alone could change what we see today? Well, if you haven't begun to consider these ideas, do it, because we have a major problem within our society that cannot be fixed unless you make a move towards change. The issue that has had and will continue to have terrible effects on our marine environment, specifically, is pollution and runoff. A pollutant is anything whose presence has harmful or poisonous effects on something else. A runoff is the draining away of water or substances carried in it from the surface of an area of land, a building, or structure. I know you're asking yourself, what does this have to do with me? You're probably thinking, yeah, I might occasionally forget my frozen beverages at the beach. Every once in a while. What's the big deal? Or maybe even, yeah, I didn't know what runoffs were until now, so it has nothing to do with me. Well, let me enlighten you on this subject. If these are your thoughts, you're wrong on all accounts, because various forms of pollution and runoff have a tremendous impact on our ecosystem. Several things have led to the degradation of the natural wonders in our world. However, the elevated nutrient concentrations in runoffs are a leading cause of the contamination in streams, lakes, wetlands, estuaries, and groundwater in the United States. Nutrients, primarily in the form of nitrogen and phosphorus, are chemical elements that are essential to plant and animal nutrition. In marine waters, either phosphorus or nitrogen can limit plant growth. However, in high concentrations, they can also be considered water contaminants. Specifically, runoffs and the excess of nutrients in a body of water greatly impact both the biotic and abiotic components of the environment. Pollution isn't something that we should just observe, but rather something we should change. Why? It affects all forms of life. Pollution affects us too. There are multiple forms of pollution that affect the marine environment. Specifically, one of the alternate forms of pollution that has and is affecting the biotic environment is light pollution. Light pollution can be observed and is caused by street lights and other man-made sources, which often inhibit the observation of the moon, stars, and etc. In regards to the abiotic components of the marine environment that are affected by pollution and runoff, you should know our moon's light is often hindered by an excess of lights and the gas produced from various industries, suburbs, cities. When the moon specifically is hindered as a result of light pollution, various nocturnal behaviors such as how to choose a nesting site, how to return to the sea after nesting, and how hatchlings, for example turtles, find the sea after hatching. Due to the fact that many marine species are visual predators, they use changes in the surrounding water's polarization to identify the presence of prey. These alterations to the natural light and dark cycles may allow for either an increase or decrease in the predation rates. One of the many biotic components affected by pollution and runoff are the marine organisms that live in these polluted waters. Various animals are tragically murdered along our coast and out at sea. An abundance of organisms have suffered and died tragically as a result of our inability to properly dispose of waste. In regards to the abiotic components affected by pollution and runoff, the moon and stars are affected because their light is hindered as a result of light pollution. Also, the water's temperature is negatively affected by pollution and runoff because the fertilizer, pesticides, and various other contaminated materials from pollution will block the sun's rays from reaching the water. If this issue is not resolved and the excess of pollution and runoff does not decrease, various species, including the human species, risk going extinct in the near future. These species will go extinct over time because of the lack of vegetation and the diseases that will poison the organisms we as humans consume or come in contact with, which will in turn lead to the degradation of our own health. If and or when we are affected by the lack of light and or contaminated water and organisms, we can assume the global economy will go down. even further, because the excess of sickness and disease will put a strain on government healthcare reforms and insurance companies. In regards to the pollution and contaminated runoffs that affect our everyday life, there's only one future we can be sure to expect if we don't make a change. Make a change not for yourself, not even just for your friends or family. Make a change for the world. The beginning of Numbers, chapter 35 through verse 33, begins with the commandment, "You shall not pollute the land in which you live in." And again in Numbers, chapter 35, verse 34, it says, "You shall not defile the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell in the midst of the people of Israel." These verses can be applied to the concept regarding pollution and runoff because the scripture specifically commands us to keep the land well and do nothing to defile it. As a whole, the U.S. population has gotten selfish in its desire to keep moving forward. We have failed to preserve and enhance the natural beauty of both the environment and its organisms. These Bible verses can be applied to the topic of pollution and runoffs because these verses serve as a reminder as to what our duty is to both God and the land He has blessed us with. Our duty is to enhance the earth's natural beauty without defiling its natural components. We alone as humans are responsible for the degradation of the world we see every day. Though God gave us dominion over His creation, it appears we have become content with the declining status of our ecosystem, both on land and at sea. To make a change, we should take a small amount of time out of our day to clean up any trash, any plastic we see. We also should make a conscious decision to use light and other chemicals wisely in order to save our environment.